here's the thing. Today, pocket watching. So for those of you that don't know this, when we looking at what other people make. So actually, the three of us have our various opinions on it, but I think for the most part, we want to talk about things like celebrities and high profile individuals, athletes, things of that nature, because we always tend to want to be in their arena. And by their arena, I'm talking about looking at their money.
Mhm.
So, Carl, we talking about pay transparency. There are two sides to it, the way I see it. We're looking at the pocket watch segment, but we'll also be looking at what's called pay transparency. And these are situations where you got government entities and companies that mandate, if you work here, we going to make your salary public.
Mm.
So again, B, I'm going to start with you.
What you got?
Pocket watching. What side of the fence are you on when it comes to that?
That's a good one because I'm a private guy, so for me, I don't think no one really needs to know what's going on payday or salary wise. I haven't been having the pleasure of being married yet, so I haven't crossed that fence yet. Maybe y'all can chime in on that one, but I think
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother show.
Yes.
Oh, we got to do that another time.
Spouse,
Okay,
spouses knowing what you make.
Okay, well, we'll put a pin
We
in.
might talk about it a little bit, but yeah, go ahead.
Little teaser. That's a
Little
teaser.
teaser.
But I think for me, I'm a private guy. I like my business tight knit, so it's a personal matter.
Okay, so do you think that in any particular time or any area it is acceptable?
LinkedIn level, maybe. If I'm on a job hunt, I would be like, okay, here's my salary. Can you match this or pay me more? But I'm not gonna see somebody I meet out for dinner is like, oh, I make X amount of dollars. What do you do? You know?
Because for me, I think I would say it's acceptable when you're talking about, these public entities. For instance, if you got the president of a public university, I think it's a public university, you getting public dollars.
Yeah, public record.
We should know. However, on the other side of the fence, if it's not a public institution, or if it's not the government, then you don't necessarily need to know. However, going back
Yeah.
again,
It's a bunch of caveats.
Yeah, it's
there
a
you
lot
go.
of
Because
lot of
when you think
private.
about it, we all know that there have been some instances where we probably have been like, well, why are you making all this money? What is it
and
exactly that you're doing?
misappropriation of funds and
Right.
so on.
And now you have to look at, okay, it's fine in certain instances, like I said, to know what people make. But how far, Carl, do we take that when it comes to, is there anything else that we need to know?
See, there you go. It starts a slippery slope to me because, again, government agencies, public entities, universities, yeah, you can know how much a job is paying. We know how much the president of the United States makes in terms of salary. We know how much senators and congressmen and, mayors of cities and so on. So we know how much they make. Salary. Now, we know they have access to more money than that because a lot of people come out
Millionaires.
and millionaires plus.
You got some shares in the company.
They have different avenues to, have income. That's fine. Private individuals, again, you may know somebody that works, at the plant. And you got an idea of what they're making, they might even tell you, oh yeah, last year I made, 120,000. Okay. But they're living way above that. And you say, well, how you doing it? Oh, well, I flip houses also on the side, or I got another, I might have a, commercial cleaning company on the side.
Yeah, do this
Oh,
at
okay.
night.
So do you say that? Well, how much you making off of that? That part they're not gonna tell you. They typically are not, because you got to keep some stuff like, hey, now, wait a minute. I can tell you what I make over here. And I'm voluntarily telling you what I make over here, but I'm not going to tell you all of my income.
But why?
Why do you need to know?
That's the $1 million question.
Because that's, okay. Yeah, old school. Growing up, you don't ask a woman how old she is or how much she weighs. And you don't ask somebody how much money they make. Those are questions you did not ask. Now,
it's a different world.
But why? Okay, so back to you. I'm going right back to you. Why?
But you know what? I think, Carl, to your point, I think that's cultural in terms of wanting to know to make, because I'm sure we've all been in situations where you've been sitting with someone that may not have been of your hue, and they ask you, what do you do? I think that's personal because, you know, based upon
That's the
what your
gateway.
answer is,
Mhm.
these are questions that they don't have a problem with that because they have no filter on stuff like that. And that's personal to a lot of people.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking, what do? I rob people. Now what?
Mm.
That'll stop that real quick. But I'm just saying,
Yeah.
you know, when
Probably
you
won't though. They probably be like,
That's more
"Interest-
questions.
Interesting.
No.
Who do you rob?"
I just think that, you know, it has come to a head in certain instances because now what we have, I think, when we talk about the whole, you know, psychology of it is people are so fixated on what folks make, it drives them into another realm, i.e., situations where CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, you know, people are pissed at them for various reasons. You know, we just recently had the incident with the healthcare CEO that was killed. You know, who knows what the motivation behind that was, but in certain industries, i.e. healthcare, people are mad.
Oh,
You
yeah.
know, health insurance companies aren't covering this. They're denying that. And of course, everything bubbles up to the top. So they're looking at CEOs, or if a company's not profitable, how can you justify a CEO making millions a year, getting all these bonuses, stock options, and the company is tanking? Whatever product or service they provide is crap. So, I mean, in those instances, I don't really want to know because, again, I think it's just going to make me upset.
Yeah.
That's a
I
good
mean,
point.
okay, that's one point. It can make
Yeah.
you upset.
Yeah,
but the
true.
other point is, even if it doesn't make you upset, how does that affect you? Okay, using the healthcare example. If my claim was denied and I'm sick and you would not pay for my radiation therapy or my, extended second round of chemo or whatever, because you're
Mhm.
saying, oh, it doesn't fall into a certain criteria. And then I find out that the CEO is making 10, 15, 20 million dollars. That's going to upset me. Yeah. But at the same time, is that really, if he was making less, does that mean that you would actually pay my claim? Because companies are still if they're denying claims, they're not denying claims to pay the CEO. They're denying claims because that's their business model.
Yeah, they want to make
Mhm.
that bottom line. But people don't know that.
But you
People
I'm not
don't
gonna
know
say
that,
you
Carl.
should.
People don't know that, Carl.
Well, and see
People
that
don't
part
know.
of it is because we live in a capitalistic society. So it's all
Mhm.
about that bottom line. So, you know, insurance companies typically they're gonna deny, hoping that at some point the provider's just gonna say to hell with it, I ain't gonna get paid.
And that's the business model.
So they get to keep that money.
Now you can say, I'm playing both sides of this. I think we all are kind of going on both sides of this.
Mhm.
Now you could say, well, we're denying so that we can increase the profits, and then the profits are going to allow us to pay more to our executives. They can say that, but I don't think that that's a correlation. I think that they're going to give you this money based on how you run this company, based on really how you pay your employees as well.
True. It
Because
trickles down.
anybody that's working in any industry, if you are, low level to mid level, you always going to say, I should be making more money. I should be making more money. And you look at the people at the top and you say, well, he's making all this money, but I could only get 3%, increase. And I'm looking at him or her, because I don't want to discriminate, because they,
whatever.
yeah,
they
whoever,
be. Yes,
you know,
there you go.
The people at the top are making, 15, 20 million.
Mm.
And you told me it wasn't in the budget for us to have a Christmas party.
Got the little pizza party.
And
It was hot.
that was
exactly. That's all you
was kind
got
of a
was
personal
hot and
example.
Yeah, I'm
ready.
about to say, y'all had the pizza. you had that Christmas pizza party
And
yet?
see, that was
We
kind
thought
of a
about
personal
that,
example.
so some hot and readies and some Faygo.
Exactly.
You know, one of the things that I found as I was looking at this is when we're talking about, pay transparency. One of the reasons that people have given for having that is to, look at pay inequality. And of
Yeah.
course, I think there's always going to be, pay inequality when it comes to men and women. That's how this country is built. But recently we've had the actors and the writers, they went on strike because they, we're not making enough money, and they want the studios and the networks to pull back the covers and show what. But for that one, I kind of felt like you knew what the game was when you got into this industry. So how did you think you were going to come into this industry and make goo gobs of money when you know how the game is played? Because at the end of the day, it's almost when you come to athletes and the sports teams, with as much money as some of these athletes make, it's nothing compared to what the owners make.
Oh no.
So
Look at the Cowboys.
yeah, yeah, that's well, the Cowboys. You look at the teams that have been. Well, the Cowboys' net worth is
10 billion.
10 billion.
10 billion.
God.
And I think Jerry Jones paid what 300 million for the team, 200 million,
Mhm.
something like that. So you do the math. You look at what the Redskins just sold, or excuse me, I'm sorry, the Commanders.
See, there you go. You about to
Sorry for our
Fam,
Native
don't be-
American audience.
No, that part won't make it. That part
in the
won't make
comments
it.
section. He's a racist.
Yeah.
Cancel Carl.
But what they just sold for as opposed to what they were worth,
Mhm.
previously. So we do know that there's exponential growth
True.
in salaries. But I want to do this, and I think looking at it, and I looked this up, and this kind of blew my mind. 1989, the highest paid athlete was Patrick Ewing. He made $3.75 million that year.
Right.
He was the highest paid athlete in the country.
Can you translate
Through all
that
sports.
to
through all
today's
sports.
value?
I don't have to because I'm
Inflate.
going to jump to 1990.
Okay.
A year later,
Mm-hmm.
Mike Tyson was the highest paid athlete in the country.
Oh, yeah, I remember that.
28.6 million.
Probably off of 2 fights, if that.
So you went from a year went by, 3.75 to 28.6. So let me do this for CEOs.
15.
Highest paid CEO in the country was the CEO of Coca-Cola. His first name is Roberto. I don't want to butcher his last name.
Gotcha.
Salary, benefits, stock options, all of that, 10.8 million.
That's today.
That was in 1989.
Wow.
10.8 million. He was the highest
You
paid.
said Roberto?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah,
He's
that's
an interesting cat. I saw a document, it was kind of a story about Coca-Cola and stuff. He was an interesting cat. But anyway, couldn't find anything for 1990. Couldn't find a definitive CEO salary. But I did find one for 1991.
Okay.
So 2 years later, Roberto made 10.8 million. 2 years later, Anthony O'Reilly, the CEO of Heinz Food Company, 75 million. So from 89 to 90, 91, there was an exponential jump in how much people were getting paid.
Man, that's a hell of a delta.
That is crazy to me.
Yeah.
So when you're looking at 89, I'm looking at Patrick Ewing. I'm like, oh, what? $3 million? That's good.
massive.
That's
then.
a lot of money. That's a lot of
massive.
money.
But
then you start jumping into the double-digit millions a year later, 2 years later.
and
And
how
if
much
you
did a new car cost then? 20,000.
What would that translate to in today's numbers? That's 75 million. My God, that'd be what? 300 million, something like that? That's crazy.
I think it would be half.
it-
I think it would go beyond 300
You think?
see, this is
because you got inflated.
and I did see that, from the late 80s until 2013, I think it was like over 1,000% growth
It was a huge.
in salaries for CEOs and top executives and so forth. So I think that this kind of really, really started when there was that exponential jump in money, when it was just for the top level people. It wasn't for everybody else.
Mm-hmm.
So if your salary, in 89, I was still in school. So, but I can tell you in 88, I was making $3.35 an hour at minimum wage working at a fast food joint.
Mm.
I don't think that $15 today is and I'm not the biggest in math, but that's not 1,000%.
Nowhere near it.
Raise
no.
from 1988 to 2024.
Yeah.
So when people start looking at that and then they look at stuff like this, that's when the pocket watching begins. To me, that's when it really is like, wait a minute. Like we're sitting here saying, how much is that now? Oh, okay, well, 3 million, 10 million in 89, 90. How much is that now?
So then do you feel that based upon what somebody is making, we are able to feel like we're emboldened to say certain things?
No,
Okay.
You feel that way?
no. I think
So, that was
Go ahead.
24. But yeah. Real quick. Thank you. Thank you, our producer back there. Dean is on. He's the man.
You got some stats for us? What you got?
Is that Cristobal Roberto? The soccer player?
Cristobal Roberto.
Cristiano Ronaldo.
His income don't count.
260 million
For 1 year,
in 2024.
But that's Ronaldo.
I'll take it.
But that's Ronaldo.
So you're saying, he's one of one.
Yes.
Okay. But he's kicking a soccer ball. He's kicking a soccer ball. I've seen people on the internet do tricks with soccer balls that blow my mind, and
It's the
they not
branding.
get they on
It's
you.
the
They
branding.
trying to get likes and views.
They in the backyard.
This man he's playing soccer.
I'm telling you, it's just Ronaldo.
But when people see that, okay, but you can say that about Mary Barr at GM. That's Mary Barr.
But you got her. Then Ronaldo is still.
You looking at them cars and
But that's what I'm saying. We start
I know
putting
what
that
you're saying.
value on people, but that's what makes it dangerous because there's jealousy in the world.
And
So it's not
that's
like
what-
oh, that's Ronaldo. He ain't all that.
And
Watch
see,
this.
and that's the thing, because what you have too, especially here in the United States, where
Mhm.
you're at a baseball game, a basketball game, and fans feel like they can just say whatever they want to say, and that you're not a human being.
That's
I
ridiculous.
paid for my
Because you
seat.
making all, and that's the thing, you make all this money, or actors, or any celebrity, for instance. We've seen clips where people asking for autograph, and you don't want to sign my autograph.
Yeah, I don't care if you at lunch.
Your movie sucks anyway, and I pay your salary, and this, that, and the third. And that's where I think we kind of lose our way, because we're all human beings. If I was making $10 million a day, that doesn't mean that I'm gonna feel like servicing you all the time. If I'm an athlete, I'm making $30 million a year, a year. I'm not gonna want to sign autographs all the time. And if I feel like I'm in that frame of mind, maybe I'm just not gonna go outside that day. Because there's nowhere you're gonna go where somebody is not going to ask, hey, can I take a picture? Hey, can I do autograph?
Comes
So on
with
and
the
so forth.
territory.
So I think a lot of times what we need to do is take a step back when we're looking at what people make, because one of the problems that I have with these high-ass salaries are, to me, they're in the wrong industry. If you gonna make $1 million a year, then damn it, how about you be a teacher? These are people that are influencing us as we
Yeah,
come
fair,
up.
fair.
I think about, Carl, we've talked about this before, the teachers that we had coming up, they influenced us
Mhm.
in some way, shape, form, or fashion. If you are a social media influencer and you own YouTube or TikTok talking about how to put makeup on, how the hell is that making somebody's value of life better? It's not.
I don't know.
But because
They
a lot
getting
of us,
paid.
society, we're so jaded, we see, I want to be like them. You're never going to be like them.
We've done that though. That's
Yep.
our fault.
The money comes from the views, Gene.
Well, and I understand that, but I'm saying
So-
to me, what it does is it says that we are so insecure that we're looking to someone else and, viewing what they have or what we think they have. Because another problem with this whole thing about looking at salaries, sometimes they're grossly inaccurate,
Mhm.
especially when it comes to rappers,
Well,
singers, and entertainers.
when it comes to entertainers,
You know
period,
that 360
because
thing that they,
the 360 contracts with indie music. You look at entertainers and you'll say, even athletes, and I like when athletes will do this and they'll kind of break it down. They'll say, okay, yeah, I signed a contract for, $100 million. You break that down annually, here's what it costs.
Mhm.
Now, you got taxes coming off the top.
Uncle Sam got to get his cut.
I got to pay agent. Well, except for Lamar Jackson. Shout out to Lamar. Keep it with his mama.
Mhm.
There you
Keep the
go.
money in the house.
101.
But most of them, they have an agent to pay.
Insurance.
You've got insurance. You've got all of these expenses. So it's like, yeah, you see this money, but
Mhm.
really what I come home with is this.
Yep.
Then you say, okay, now I bought a house. If you black, you bought your mama a house.
Grandma.
If you black, you bought your grandmama a house, and you got your cousin on your payroll. I mean, we do that, and
Yeah,
I'm not.
Yes, we do.
Part of
know,
the territory.
And I'm not saying that that's right or wrong, but we do that. So now we
lot.
have all these expenses. So now, to Gene's point, I go and I miss a play, I drop a ball, I miss a basket, and you say, you taking home $10 million and you can't do XYZ. Okay, first of all, I'm human.
It's 3.75.
These things don't have, and it's nowhere near $10 million. And guess what? Right before I came out here, my cousin Johnny just called me and said he got locked up.
My cousin underwater on the mortgage.
Right, you know. My grandma said that somebody that took the little money out the house that I gave. I mean, you know, I've got other things
And you
happening.
thinking about that, and maybe that's why when the coach said, "Hey, it's time for you to go in the game," you said, "I don't feel like playing."
I don't feel like playing.
A lot going on.
It's just, but, and so that's the, you know, back to your question, what is our psychology of, I need to know how much you make to try to equate what I expect from you.
Well, I think nowadays, I can't think of the best. I think a lot of people now we're more nosy because it's a more transparent world, right? I mean, think back with the first examples. You couldn't get on a phone and see how much people made. That was like public record somewhere. Now you can get on your phone and say, "Oh, if I apply for this job, I'm gonna make X amount of dollars, and the CEO make this. I'm just get on Google and Glassdoor and LinkedIn and see all these salaries." And then, like you said, people are getting more transparent. So there might be people at the bar. I made 50 grand last year. What did you do? It's more open nowadays.
But even when you get online, and I work for a company, and we used to laugh at this. You'd go, look at a job posting, internal, and you read all the qualification, and you get to the salary, and it might say 65,000 to 110,000.
It's a broad range based on
And
experience.
you're going like,
It's based on experience.
so
Paul.
let's say you get the job and they say, okay, well, Brandon, we want to offer you this position, and you're the most qualified, and we're going to offer you 67,000. So you looking like 65 for
Where
the
the
low
other 40?
end. 110 was
Where
the high
40?
end.
You missing 40 on me.
See, that's what I'm saying. Where's the? I can't get to the 100.
And what's the answer you're gonna get though?
Well, there are some other people that your qualifications are here.
Bye.
But I think that
Bye.
you'll grow
You
into
don't
the
even
position.
finish that sentence
And
with me.
But see, this is what companies will do.
Oh yeah.
And
you
I
want to
think
save
that-
money.
And I think that people will look at that, and then they look at the CEO and they say, well, they making this much money. How come I can't get more than that?
And another thing that they'll that I've noticed is they're starting now to incorporate the other benefits with that base
Oh,
salary.
absolutely.
Well, your health care, we're paying this portion towards your premium.
Get a work from home
you're
stipend.
getting a crappy 401k anyway. But they factor in all of that. But I would
Oh,
say
yeah.
when it comes to looking at salaries and whatnot, Brandon, where does it stop? Do I need to know, in addition to your salary, your middle name, how many kids you got, how many houses you got, how many boats you got? Because to me, that's when it becomes really invasive. And that's where it becomes scary, because it's some nut jobs out there that
Yeah.
will make it a point to show up on your front doorstep and feel like, well, your salary was out there. Exactly. So now you're going to scare my wife. I'm going to have to come to the door in my drawers and my 9 and draw down on you.
Or they think that you got, $1 million art collection inside of your house because you make this money. We know how much money you make. So, or you got the cash in there. You just sleep on it.
Whole
So we're
time
going
it's
to
at
come
the
into your
bank.
house.
But we gon' that's complicated.
Well, but and what we have to do too, in terms of I think it's natural to be a little bit nosy
Yeah, we're
about
all
certain things.
curious.
But don't get distracted to the point to, where you feel like you can be online and you can say this and you can say that, because that negative energy, you could be using it someplace else. I know
Yeah,
for myself,
exactly.
I'm not sitting back worried about what the next man is making.
And on the other side, why don't you, because I look at it, use that as a positive thing. If you see Mr. CEO making $375,000, why don't you work harder and try to climb yourself up instead of being, he make all that money? Because what is me just looking at the pay, getting mad about it gonna do? It's not gonna do anything. But I know I might be a little obvious. You can work a couple more hours.
No,
We not. Come on, I'm trying to. You
Brandon,
can work.
listen, man,
everybody needs to work a little bit harder.
You said the word work a couple of times, and that's why I'm like,
You don't want to work harder to make a
No.
couple more.
Don't nobody want to work?
Exactly.
But the
Why?
work is the
Hell,
salary.
if I could be kept, I would. I love my wife. But
Wait a minute.
I know I know I got to work, but I'm not working. Man, overtime. No.
But that's my thing. Again, you saying work, go to work harder. This done. Some of that we know is crap.
Do it though.
Some of that we know is crap.
Somebody's got to do it. Though.
But the other part is, even if you do, and you start to ascend, that's not. It still doesn't equate to why I got to know how much you make.
Oh no, it's not.
It does. That's the part I just don't.
Because that part's still gonna be on the back end.
And like we said, starting out this conversation, public record. If I go to a university, when I was in college, I did that. I was really like, I can see how much this university is bringing in, but you keep saying my tuition is going up
every year.
That's an issue to me.
And look how much it costs now.
And I went to a small school at the time. It was Division II. We didn't have a football program and all that kind of stuff. But if I went to a University of Michigan or Michigan State or Alabama,
arm, leg,
and I'm looking at the money that the football program is going, if you see some of the weight rooms and the workout facilities and the dorms and the cafeterias for these athletes, and you're saying what you're giving them is a free education, but the money that they bring in is 20 times. Oh, yeah. At the time, until he retired, Nick Saban was the highest paid public employee in the state of Alabama.
So how many tuitions is that? How many tuitions can you fit in that salary?
So it's like, I get that part. That part you can say as an individual, wait a minute, I should be benefiting from this as well because I'm part of this public entity, government. I should be the government. The Congress and the Senate passed a bill. They've got free healthcare for the rest of their life, even if they're not reelected.
Of course. And they get to vote on pay increases.
Absolutely.
Where they do that at? Because it ain't at my job.
The U.S. of
But those same people are sitting in chambers debating about whether or not healthcare should be universal for all the citizens.
Because you have the best healthcare that is available
for your for the rest of your life.
Bar none.
They're good.
And it's like, how do you do that? So if I'm the public, if I'm a citizen, I'm going like, wait a minute. I should be able to know this stuff, and we should be able to talk about it because that affects me. But if I'm in a private company, I'm working for a private company, and the CEO is making whatever dollars, I might say, okay, well, you made it public, great, but that still doesn't mean. I mean, I don't know how that. Using your example, Brandon, well, work harder. Maybe I can get to that top level at one.
But see that's a big maybe. I mean, I look at it this way too. You have to put it into perspective. What good is it doing to know what the next person is making? I mean, because at the end of the day, for me, I don't care.
Yeah, same. I don't.
But if you know what the next person's making and they making more than you, then how does that make you feel if you're doing the same job?
Good question.
And have you had that happen? Because I have.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I know. I've got people superior to me that I'm a little better than that. It's a little window. And that's where my strange I'm outwork you philosophy comes into play.
So they older, so you go outwork them and thinking they gonna die in a few years and I'm still be working. And then now I can take their place and make the money that they was making. I'm just trying to.
You just made that in the darkest way.
Man,
I'm gonna outlive them, Eugene.
Right, because they gonna die soon. They older.
I didn't say they gonna die.
Because they can't work as hard as you.
They're gonna retire soon.
That's your plan.
They're gonna retire, and I'm gonna overtake. That's a lighter way. They're not.
So are you gonna get their money though?
Oh yeah.
You think so?
See, that's the thing.
These new kids, they something else.
Because I'm gonna tell you.
What you gonna do?
Now you're in a different you're in a different industry. But I've seen this happen
McDonald's.
before.
Fry cook.
You team lead,
about to be shift leader.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So
as you were saying,
I've seen this happen before. You right here, the old person is right here. I know that they about to retire.
We gotta say retire. Why is it?
And I'm gonna move into their spot.
Trying to kill people.
No, they getting pushed out.
They retire,
and
their position is senior leader.
Shift leader.
Yours is junior leader.
Yep. Fry cook.
Okay.
Yep.
They're gone.
There's no shift leader.
You're next for senior leader.
Yep.
You know what we're gonna do? We're gonna eliminate that position.
Oh, I'm gonna go elsewhere.
And now we're going to the junior. We're going to realign, and junior leader is now going to become leader direct for the shift of the night crew, and we're gonna, it comes with a salary increase of 3%.
The associate junior leader.
So this is what
That's the new
and
position.
see, that's the kind of stuff that gets the people up here the money,
Mhm.
because they're looking at that. We're gonna figure out a way to have Brandon do this work, but we're not gonna pay Brandon the money that the retired person was making.
Oh no! So if that happens, to expand on that, so if I don't go from fry cook to shift leader, I take my talents elsewhere, and then I'll be the shift leader.
How many
So you gonna go
elsewheres
to
do
Wendy's
you
and be the
have?
shift leader there?
I might be my own shift leader at
Okay.
Brambo's
So
Chicken and Waffles.
So
There you go.
and this is what a lot of people are doing.
Mhm.
And it's like, but everybody is not gonna go elsewhere, because one,
True.
there's
That is
not
fair.
there's not a bunch of elsewheres.
Fair.
Two, I've been at this place for 20. I've been the fry cook for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
I know what I'm doing. I can sleepwalk through this job.
I'm comfortable.
So now
Yeah, it's not gonna be for everybody to
it's
take
not gonna
that
be for everybody.
initiative.
But the thing is, because I know how much money this person makes, it's not going to, that work. That's why I said the work correlation doesn't always work,
yeah, fair.
because
It is a case
I'm
by
never
case.
I'm gonna say never. I want to say never, but it's not always a guarantee that I'm going to be able to assimilate into a certain income
fair,
category.
fair.
So
It
the
is a
motivation of working, to me, that's really, and in general, the motivation of working
keep
in this
in mind,
generation is not
too,
that.
Brandon, how long have you been in the workforce? A good
This would
10,
be
12 years?
This would be my 11th year.
11th year. You've been in workforce since you were 16, both of us.
Mm-hmm.
So we talking almost 40 years.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a difference. I mean,
Yeah,
and while
yeah.
while we love your enthusiasm, B, the reality behind it, based upon our experiences,
Because we've seen, you get old and grizzled, and you've seen too many bamboozlements, and that's why I try, and my point is,
Yeah,
I
it's
try
fair,
not to
it's
get
fair.
caught up in what somebody else has made. I try not to pocket watch
Mhm.
nobody else.
Mhm.
Because here's the thing: if you know what you want, you're gonna go for what you want.
And that's the other side of it too. So it's not just I know where I'm at. This shift leader makes X amount of dollars. I gotta keep my job, right? So it's not that shift leader makes X, right? It's that I have a goal in mind of what I want to. So that's the other side. So
Okay.
yes, I have the salary transparency, and I know what this is, but I know what I want as well. So that's where I deviate a little bit. So now, granted, if I get shift leader and I'm falling short under both shift leader and what I want,
Mhm.
that's the problem.
so let me ask you then, in this zest to become shift leader, have you or do you feel like if someone in upper management is saying, hey, Brandon, you're next in line, how much onus do you take in what they're saying? Because we've seen situations where promises have been made, people have
Mhm.
been told certain things,
Mhm.
and it didn't come to fruition. So are you saying that if management tells you that you next in line, are you really gonna believe it?
Well, I don't. How's the nicest way to put this? Because
Man,
I don't want to
nice.
use your no. Because I'm not gonna say the D word about people going on to see Jesus. But a lot of people I'm around are close to retiring. They about to cast away. So it's just gonna be me to slide in and take over the restaurant.
So you sitting back saying, I'm just gonna wait your ass out. Because I know sooner or later.
They're gonna be mopping one day and just
Well, I mean, you come in at 65, 58. Come on now.
58. Wait a minute.
Yeah,
Slow down.
Damn.
Slow
we,
down.
We
They
in
about
our
to- I
50s.
know. I know some.
I'm not about to
I-
die.
well,
Slow
no.
down.
See, you
hope
said
not.
I said retire.
But you said 50, 58.
I know some they're about to retire.
Okay.
Okay. so-
Retire.
Yeah. Well, they
Like
do.
go home.
Well,
Not like all the way home, but home. to their-
retirement. You know when you tell your job I'm about to retire. I'm not just picking
Okay.
people off
Okay.
at work. I'm not doing that. I'm just patiently waiting to you
Right,
put your
man.
paperwork in.
But
You gonna have them thinking I'm trying to take the office out.
no.
now.
I mean, I just think there's a line to be drawn when we're talking about the whole, pay transparency and pocket watching, because we know in our community, we don't do it as much as some people, but we do it because we got slick ways of talking. You know,
Mhm.
Oh yeah.
you know, Johnny just got that new Cadillac. What kind of money he making? You know, and I was always taught, and I just, you know, I was gonna save it to the end, but it's on my mind, so let me say it.
Have at it.
My wife, and I believe she may have gotten it from my mother-in-law. She has all of these isms, and I don't know if you guys have heard this one, but she says it even to our 5-year-old daughter. Mind the business that pays you.
I like that.
Mhm.
Stop being so damn nosy because it doesn't get you anywhere. And that's what, fam, that's what I have led with, and that's what I'm gonna stand 10 toes down on. I ain't got time to be worried about what somebody else is making, especially if it's not contributing to the Mitchell household. So, you know, I think it's important for us to really stay on the right side of this. Unfortunately, social media
Yeah,
has a
the
lot to
world we
do.
live in would definitely beg to argue
it's
with
the
that.
world we live
Yeah.
in. Even prior to social media, it was a 24-hour news cycle
Mm.
that really wanted to get into,
Yep.
you know, and I agree wholeheartedly with minding the business that pays you.
You should, but
But I think that it becomes difficult when we, society, and when I say we, place expectations on people and equate that with money. I mean, we talk
Mhm.
about the athletes part. We talk about, but it's like, you know, you're successful if you make a certain amount of money. And Eugene, you're right. You know, coming up, and we still say, you know, we've gotten older, so you know, you might run into somebody you haven't seen for a while. Hey, man, look at you, man. You looking good, man. You making all the money. How do I reply to that? You know, do you say, "Nah, I don't have nothing out there," or do
Nope.
you say, "Yeah, I'm doing pretty good"? So if you say
No,
I'm doing
you-
pretty
no,
good, they're
no,
gonna
no,
want to be
no,
like,
no.
"Well, what
No,
again?
you
What you doing now?"
see, you gotta
What
spin it back
You
around.
know,
You
you
gotta
know
say,
what Biggie said, more money, more
no,
problems.
no, no, no. You just say, I'm trying to get like you.
That's the other part. I'm
That's
trying to
that's
get
the
like,
golden
nah,
one.
man, I ain't got, you know,
Pass it right back.
it's all about you, baby.
Yep.
Okay, we do that, and that's a greeting that I've heard since I was a, you know,
Oh yeah.
young buck. But it gets to the point where it's like people really are starting to get intrusive as to
Yeah.
what you do and how you do. And it's fine if you're, you know, willing to share that. That's, you know, because some people, and again, social media has made this into a cottage industry. I can sell courses on how to make money.
If you want to learn how to be the best shift leader,
Yeah,
call
and
me.
that's that in and of itself is a business. So I, you know, I have found that a lot of times people will bring it upon themselves in terms of flexing and stunting, you
Mhm.
know, to show you this is what I have. Matter of fact, there are a couple of people that I stopped following on Instagram. This is my own personal protest because I got tired of, oh, look what I got. You know, I just bought my son this Beamer for his 16th birthday. And I'm saying, this was a comedian. And I'm saying to myself,
Mm.
you the same comedian Cat Williams say can't read, but that's all right. Anyway, so
Man,
I'm looking and I'm
ooh.
like, I don't need to see that. And because ultimately what's gonna happen though is when people are doing this, the flexing and the stunting, brother, if you have a fall from grace, it's gonna be hard and people gonna be laughing at you. So I
I'll buy
say
that BMW for whoever when them times come. I'm
Fry
just
Cook
saying.
pays that position paying
See,
pretty well, huh?
I work at a lot
exactly.
of different McDonald's.
See.
But I'm just saying though, how
Told you, work
how do
harder,
you
Carl.
feel
Work
about
harder.
that though, man? I mean, if somebody is putting it in your face, then how do you deal with that? You know,
You still
I
mind
don't.
the business that pays you. That don't have nothing to do with.
Well, I see where you're going because you see some people are gonna see that and it's gonna eat away at them and your self-esteem and all
And
of
that's
that.
why I'm
And that's
saying we have to draw the line
Yeah.
and just you don't be concerned about what the next person because like my
Mm-mm.
mother always said, God rest her soul, you don't know what somebody has done to get what they got, and you don't know what they're doing to keep it.
Absolutely.
And that keeps me as humble as I can be.
Here's the thing, too, though. You just said a
See,
comedian.
here's the thing.
See,
I like that.
here's the thing.
Good show.
You
Great
just said
show.
a comedian. We talk about actors. We talk about athletes. We talk about all these people are one-of-ones. We're not going. Everybody is not going to be that person. Now, what I can say is, if I look at a comedian, if I look at an athlete, if I look at a CEO, I can always say, well, what surrounds that person? Who are those people that surround them? Whether it be agents, whether it be, you know, if I'm a real estate agent to the stars, or if I'm, whatever major metropolitan city that you're in, I get in good with a baseball, football, somebody athlete and say, hey, when you're ready to buy a house, give me a call. I'll take care of you. That word of mouth, I'm gonna eat forever.
Yeah, networking.
And I'm a real estate agent. I can do the same thing in, the automotive industry. You've seen people that are designers of cars. John DeLorean, he was a designer at Ford. Started his own car company. Now there's some other things, for young people. Google John DeLorean and tell the whole story.
But trying to bring it back too.
Yeah, DeLorean.
What's the guy at Chrysler? Kevin Giles, I think his name is. Brother, that's at Chrysler. He designed the 300.
Hell, Carroll Shelby at Ford.
So these are people.
Icon.
These are people. They're not the tops, but they did what they followed their passion. They worked hard.
There you go. I was waiting to hear that one. That's what I like.
and they've really achieved. And like when people say, well, I don't know how much money Carroll Shelby got.
Mm-hmm.
We know Carroll Shelby and that family is okay.
And see, you can appreciate that though. But see, when you're talking about, these CEOs and whatnot, a lot of people look at them and say, well, they ain't really doing nothing because everybody under them, they're the ones that are doing the hard work. You're out here, you are the face of the company based upon, everybody else and how hard they work.
Yeah, but when people say that, they don't.
I feel like that's a dicey one.
Yeah, when people say that, they've never been a leader.
Yeah,
because if you are the face of the company, you're the face of everything right, and you're the face of everything wrong.
Mm-hmm. Bingo. Yeah.
So
take a CFO.
Right.
Let a CFO screw up.
It ain't gonna affect the CEO. He gonna get him another CFO.
They gonna right, and that's the thing. I got to take that scandal on. I got to take on everything,
the hit from your
and it's
CFO
gonna be
tanking.
they're gonna be looking at the CEO like, is that your boy? Is that your girl? You know what I'm saying? How they get here?
Yeah.
So when you're right, they don't do the everyday day-to-day work that you would think people do, but they've taken on the face of the organization, and anything good or bad that happens. And I always think about the and I don't know his name, but the guy that took over Kmart, young guy, came in from CVS, took over Kmart, and there is no more Kmart.
Exactly.
Oopsie.
Now, financially, I think he turned out all right. He's still fine. He's
I bet,
because they were paying him again. They publicized his salary.
Yep, up front.
$30 million a year and yada, 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 and all this kind of stuff, and ran the company into the ground. And basically was like, oh, well, I tried.
My bad.
And at the end, he had a golden parachute.
Yeah.
So, not a problem.
And like I said, I don't remember his name. But I do know the name of, Christoph Ronaldo.
Wait.
He talking about the soccer guy.
Oh, Cristiano. Oh,
yeah.
There you go.
As y'all can tell,
we like real football around here.
Yeah, I don't.
Don't say that on that side of the world. They
Right.
ain't gonna come for you.
Or Patrick Mahomes. I know that name. $400 million. I know Juan Soto. $750 million. Playing baseball. So
that's a big one.
and it's like these people are. So do I think Juan Soto is gonna have a $750 million in his pocket? People think they do. And the first time he has an error, they're gonna be ready to crucify him.
Yeah, because he's in New York. My goodness gracious!
Mhm.
Even though it's the Mets, still.
I mean, and it's a 15-year contract. He's not.
He ain't gonna last. I think after year 8, they're gonna be like they're gonna have buyer's remorse at that point.
Restructure this.
And the way that ain't gonna be no restructuring because baseball contracts are guaranteed, thankfully. And here's the other thing. He'll be just like Miguel Cabrera was in Detroit. They're going to wheel him up there and keep hitting that ball. And it's like,
no more.
Or as we like to call him, El Gordo. Anyway.
Miguel, I didn't say that.
Coffee went the wrong way.
Okay, yeah. So I think we're pretty much in agreement that there are certain aspects to pay transparency that we probably should be. We disagree. Well, I ain't gonna say disagree, but we agree too that pocket watching is totally inappropriate. I think that when we have that line drawn in the sand, we're talking about certain aspects. Like for instance, Carl, I have no belief that people should know anything other than your salary. I don't need to know how many houses. I don't need to know how many kids you got, because to me, especially on the kids and the family front, they're innocents in that. So you don't want to bring them into, because recently with the CEO, the healthcare CEO that just got murdered, now all of a sudden, right after he got killed,
Oh, I know his whole life story.
CEOs all over the place started scrubbing their websites, taking all their information off.
As they should.
You know, so I say to myself, it's caused a scare, but at the same time, maybe y'all think twice about, you know, showing up in your 80-foot yacht, you know, and doing all this and wearing a different Rolex for every day when you out and about. You know, I think that there's a way that we can go about, you know, being a successful society in terms of getting along. Stuff like this, because it's materialistic, it's one of the things that's breaking us down. And for whatever reason, I don't know, maybe that's another show, we can't seem to get past it. And again, I'm not blaming everything on social media, but we
No,
do
no,
know
it's
what
the-
it was like pre-social media.
it's
We
the-
had some of the same social ills,
Mhm.
but now, I mean, it's to a point where it's been heightened.
Yeah,
And
it's the good old keeping up with the Joneses times 10, 100,000.
Yeah.
It's
more than,
amplified.
more than 10 for sure.
It's not what it used to be. But you remember it was like, okay, they got the Cadillac and the white picket fence, and that's all you know. But now you know they got the Cadillac. He make $375,000. His wife make $250,000. They got 2 kids and they got a 401k, and then they got shares in the company, and it just goes on and on. Then you can look on their social media. You saw he just bought the Rolex last week. Now you're like, dang, I just got my Tahoe over there.
so B, let me ask you, what advice can you give to the family out there when it comes to
You don't want to come this way.
whether or not,
You don't.
you know, they should be coming in McDonald's looking for you because they know you making all the money?
Huh?
Yeah.
Oh, I was just gonna tell people they need to work harder, Eugene. That's why I said don't come over here.
So
I'ma
family,
tell
that,
you need to
that's
work
it.
harder.
Work harder. Okay. So
But
y'all
it's a
y'all know
method to
B ain't
my-
giving away no money to homeless people on the street because he's telling them work harder.
No,
Anyway, I'm
I'll
just
bless a
messing with you.
brother in distress. I will do that. But if you want to talk to me, then I'm gonna give him some good word. But that's just my whole thing, and it has worked out for me well, and that's why I try to practice what I preach. Working hard, it's not for everybody. I know I'm not about to do all that, but it worked. It worked.
Why you sound like a slave when he said, I ain't about to do all of that?
Because you know somebody go rebuttal with that. I don't want,
Okay.
but I'm just saying, it's out there.
Okay.
You can get it if you want it.
Mm.
Mr. Jackson.
Carl said,
So I think of it like, and this might bring up another question, but when you said, you know, helping the homeless brother on the street, if these top CEOs, and some of them do, and some of them, you know, make it very public and so forth, if they were more benevolent, do you think that people would be more apt to give them a pass on what they're making? Because I just,
That's
and
a
like I said, I don't
yes.
want to start a whole nother
because there
conversation.
are some like that.
There are
And
some
then
like
there are
that.
some that are the direct opposite.
But they still don't get a break though. That's it.
Yeah, so
I
that's a
look at
hard
that
one.
like you
Right.
said earlier, Carl. It's a slippery slope because at some point somebody gonna say, "Well, yeah, he's doing that, but he could be doing that."
Well, and I try to bring it down to the urban level. We look at, you know, the drug dealer who would pay people's rent or, you know, give out turkeys at Thanksgiving and, you know, do certain
That's a different story, 'cause
sponsor
these were good
basketball
people.
teams. And see, and a lot of people would say, listen, you've got people who will
Yeah,
defend
Bubba
them
Johnson.
to the,
Okay, Frank
you know,
Lucas,
they will defend them to the,
Yep.
they help me.
Marion Barry,
These people help. See, stop.
Coleman Young,
Coleman, yeah.
Honorable
Bruh.
Coleman Young.
The
Coleman Young was the greatest mayor in the history of mayors, and I'm gonna leave it at that.
period.
But these people, when they do things and they're benevolent, a lot of times you can, you know, well, yeah, they did this, but they did this. So if and like you said, companies do it. Companies give out money. We got foundations. Here in
Yeah.
Detroit, we got the Dan Gilbert Foundation, the Ford Foundation. The Ford family gives out a lot of money. So you can look at, oh yeah, they made $500 million, but look what they're doing over here. If CEOs or athletes or whoever if we're pocket watching and we can see that they're doing these nice things in the community or nice things for people, do we kind of say, oh, we don't really care about how much they make?
I don't
That's
think
a
so.
hard one.
I don't think so, because I think that there's always going to be this element of skepticism.
Yep.
You know, are you being authentic?
Mm.
Are you doing this for a tax write-off? Are you doing this just for publicity's sake? Are you doing this because you say to yourself, if I give the impression that I'm being good, maybe they're gonna get off my back?
Yeah.
I mean, and that's just me, because I'm
Yeah.
naturally a skeptical person, and some of these people may definitely be coming straight from the heart. I think, though, that too, we have to look at perhaps paying it forward in a different way. Maybe, scholarships, maybe, mentoring programs, things of that nature. Because a lot of times what these young folks coming up are seeing are unrealistic ideas of what they think success is. Because again, yeah, somebody might say they making 10 million, Carl, but to your point, you factor in taxes, all this other stuff. I might bring home 3.5 if I'm lucky. It's still a lot, but yay.
So Eugene is saying work harder, folks. That's what he said.
I ain't.
Like, I'm getting all y'all. I'm
And
working
see,
on it. Yep.
There we go. B, I'm just, yeah. I ain't
You next, Carl.
I ain't
You
I ain't
next.
58 yet.
You next.
So, leave it at that, man.
Work harder. I love it.
There's a way, though, that we can get back, because I think there's a happy medium that we can have with this. For instance, going back to the whole pay transparency thing, there's certain states, I think California in 2018, they instituted pay transparency. So now businesses in California, you got to put your salaries out there. And to date, I think there are probably like 13 different states that have enacted some of the same mandates about, government employees in their states and stuff, and making the salaries transparent.
Public and private sector, I'm assuming.
Mostly public, because on the private sector, that's up to the individual companies.
Okay.
So if
you're
your
not
company
forcing
decides
private.
this is what we're going to do, then yeah, if you're an employee there,
Can't
guess
find
what?
me at McDonald's, y'all.
Dude, I wonder if McDonald's, we're going to look up Brandon's salary.
I work at a different McDonald's.
And on that
They
note,
work at McDonald's.
It's government owned. So you can find me. Or
But-
a private contractor.
we hope, fam, that, we've given you guys some food for thought. Maybe we've changed some minds, maybe we haven't. But again, we're just giving our perspective. There, once again, there is a happy medium, and hopefully we can get there. I do want to encourage people, because we're starting to get comments. Y'all go ahead and give us comments on our YouTube page. We want you to like the show, subscribe, share it. And what we're also looking for, we're not opposed to show topic ideas. I mean, and we get them from all over the place. Family, friends. Some of them we may use. Some of them we say we gonna use, but we probably
will
not
review.
gonna use. There we go.
Good
You
answer.
see, and Brandon's working hard on that. That's
Mhm.
yes. As always, fam, we gonna leave you guys with these words. Stay prayerful, stay positive, stay patient, stay peaceful. See y'all next time.